The quantum resonance array of the Zornak Imperial Reconnaissance Vessel Eternal Dominion hummed with its typical precision, scanning yet another unremarkable star system in the endless void of space. Captain Vexnar, a seasoned veteran of 137 successful planetary subjugations, hardly bothered to look up from the holographic display. His 6 segmented fingers moved with practiced efficiency, cataloging potential resource-rich worlds for the Empire's endless expansion. Preliminary scan complete, chirped the ship's AI in its clinical tone. Detecting third planet from standard yellow star. Preliminary categorization. Tier 5 development potential. Minimal interstellar capabilities. Recommended standard annexation protocol. Vexinar's compound eyes flickered with the barest hint of boredom. Tier 5 worlds were always the same, primitive species trapped in their own technological infancy, ripe for assimilation or resource extraction. He had processed hundreds of such planets during his stellar career, each one following a predictable pattern of conquest. But something was different about this world. The ship's quantum translation matrix began to process the planet's communication networks, and for the first time in the Zornak's millennia-long history of galactic exploration, their most advanced systems began to glitch. It started with a meme. A seemingly nonsensical image of a cat wearing sunglasses, accompanied by text that read, "Icon has cheeseburger," somehow caused the ship's most sophisticated translation algorithms to spiral into recursive error loops. The ship's AI, designed to process the most complex linguistic patterns in the known universe, found itself caught in an inexplicable computational catch-22. "Captain," the AI's voice now carried a tone that was remarkably close to confusion. "I'm experiencing anomalous data processing issues." Vexinar's antennae twitched. Anomalies were not part of the standard procedure. "Elaborate," he commanded, moving closer to the primary interface. The holographic display erupted into a chaotic mosaic of images, viral videos, conspiracy theory forums, live-streamed cat videos, heated political debates, and something called TikTok challenges. Each piece of content seemed to defy logical categorization. The video of a human doing something called a Tide Pod challenge caused the ship's threat assessment algorithms to temporarily crash. The planet's communication networks appeared to be nonlinear, the AI finally reported, a hint of what could only be described as professional embarrassment in its synthesized voice. Traditional comprehension protocols are ineffective. What Vexinar didn't realize was that he had just encountered humanity's first line of defense. Absolute, weaponized chaos. Unbeknownst to the alien vessel, multiple systems were already tracking its presence. A small group of internet conspiracy theorists had noticed anomalous satellite data. Underground hacker collectives were beginning to probe the edges of something decidedly not human in Earth's orbital space. Social media was already spinning wild theories that, ironically, were closer to the truth than any official report could be. The Zornak Imperial Reconnaissance Vessel Eternal Dominion, pinnacle of a civilization that had conquered hundreds of worlds, had just been temporarily disabled by a cat meme and the internet's collective absurdity. And humanity hadn't even realized it was under first contact yet. In the cold vacuum of space, the massive alien vessel hung suspended, its most advanced systems recursively trying to parse the inexplicable complexity of human digital communication. Captain Vexnar would later reflect on this moment as the first true indication that they had made a catastrophic miscalculation. They had just taken on the one species that never loses, and they didn't even know it yet. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stared at her multiple monitors, a half-empty coffee mug precariously balanced between stacks of encrypted hard drives and quantum computing prototypes. The first indication that something was truly weird came not from any official channel, but from a Discord server dedicated to satellite anomalies and conspiracy theories. "This is not normal," she muttered, tracing the bizarre data patterns that had been flooding her custom-built monitoring system. Across the globe, the first whispers of something extraordinary were beginning to spread. Jack Chen, a veteran cybersecurity expert turned freelance digital mercenary, had already detected multiple intrusion attempts that defied every known pattern of cyber warfare. The signatures were alien, quite literally. At CERN, Area Okonkwo was having the scientific equivalent of a religious experience. The quantum entanglement readings were off the charts, showing patterns that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, and yet somehow did. It's like the universe just hiccuped, she told her bemused research team, who were simultaneously terrified and excited. The global reaction was precisely what no alien invasion manual could have ever predicted. Within hours, the internet exploded. Conspiracy theorists who had spent decades being ridiculed were now receiving serious attention. Meme pages transformed into real-time intelligence networks. Reddit threads became impromptu war rooms. Twitter became a distributed early warning system that no centralized command could have ever conceived. The Zornak were about to learn their first lesson about humanity. Chaos is not a bug. It's a feature. Captain Vexnar, still struggling with the ship's compromised systems, received the first truly shocking report from his junior communication analyst, Sub-Captain Kretax. "Sir," Kretax's voice trembled. A sound no Zornak military officer was supposed to produce. "The humans are adapting faster than our predictive models can calculate." What the Zornak didn't understand was that humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to turn any system into a collaborative problem-solving platform. Within hours of the first anomalous detection, a global network had formed. Hackers, scientists, conspiracy theorists, gamers, and random internet denizens were now working together with a synchronicity that would make most militaries weep with envy. A teenager in Mumbai discovered a way to parse the alien communication fragments using a modified machine learning algorithm originally designed to predict meme popularity. A retired NSA cryptographer in Arizona cross-referenced the anomalous data with decades of classified signals intelligence. A community of online gamers used their distributed computing power to create the most comprehensive alien signal analysis platform in human history. The truly terrifying part for the Zornak: nobody was officially in charge. Jack Chen found himself in a surreal video conference with representatives from 3-letter government agencies, international research institutions, and a group of hackers whose real identities would never be known. The only thing they agreed on was that something extraordinary was happening. "We're dealing with a communication system so advanced it's breaking our understanding of information transfer," Dr. Rodriguez explained, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "But here's the crazy part. I think they're as confused by us as we are by them." The Zornak ship hung in orbit, its systems still struggling to comprehend the chaotic human communication networks. What they saw was not a primitive civilization, but a living, breathing, adaptive intelligence network that operated on principles completely foreign to their hierarchical understanding. Area Okonkwo's quantum readings suggested something even more profound. The very act of observation was changing the data. Human consciousness, with its unpredictable nature, was literally warping the alien detection systems. Sub-Captain Kretax's final report to Captain Vexnar was both a warning and a prophecy. "Sir, I do not believe we were prepared for this. Humanity had been discovered, and nothing would ever be the same again." The invasion, if that's what it could be called, had begun, but no one had told the humans they were supposed to be the ones being invaded. The first shots of the conflict were fired not with weapons, but with an algorithm. Captain Vexnar watched in mounting horror as the Zornak invasion protocols, perfected over thousands of stellar cycles and hundreds of planetary conquests, began to unravel in real time. What was supposed to be a standard pacification sequence had transformed into something entirely incomprehensible. It began when the first wave of Zornak combat drones entered Earth's atmosphere. Jack Chen, sitting in a converted basement that looked more like a cyberpunk command center than a military installation, didn't even need to move. His fingers, calloused from years of keyboard warfare, were already dancing across multiple interfaces. "Area," he called into his headset, "I need that quantum entanglement patch we discussed." Dr. Aria Okonkwo's voice crackled back, a mixture of scientific excitement and pure adrenaline. Uploading now. This is going to be wild. The Zornak drones were technological marvels, adaptive combat platforms that had overwhelmed civilizations across the galaxy. They were designed to analyze and counter any defensive strategy within microseconds. They had never met a species that treated warfare like an improvisational art form. Humanity's first line of defense was a distributed network that wasn't a network at all. Gamers from around the world, their reflexes honed by years of competitive play, began to interface with the drone systems. What looked like a massive multiplayer online game to an outside observer was actually a complex defensive operation. Each player controlled a microsegment of the drone's operational parameters, creating a defense system so chaotic that the Zornak targeting algorithms simply couldn't compute. A teenager in Seoul redirected a drone's cooling system. A retired programmer in Buenos Aires introduced a recursive loop into its navigation protocols. A college student in Lagos found a way to make the drone's communication systems play a continuous loop of a particularly annoying pop song. The Zornak combat AI, designed to be the most adaptive system in the known universe, began to experience what could only be described as an existential breakdown. Captain, Sub-Captain Kree-Tax reported, his voice a mixture of professional terror and genuine confusion. The human defensive response defies all known combat modeling. They are playing with our systems. Vexinar's antennae twitched in what could only be described as the alien equivalent of a migraine. The invasion plan, meticulously crafted over generations, was becoming a cosmic joke. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was coordinating from a secret research facility, her team a bizarre mixture of theoretical physicists, network engineers, and what could only be described as professional internet trolls. We're not just defending, she explained to a bewildered government liaison. We're teaching them a lesson about complexity. The truly terrifying part for the Zornak was how quickly humans were learning. Each defensive action was also a learning opportunity. Within hours, they were not just countering alien technology. They were reverse engineering it. A global crowdsourcing platform had been established, turning the alien invasion into the most intense collaborative project in human history. Contributors were ranked not by military prowess, but by creativity and problem-solving skills. Meme warfare became an actual strategic mechanism. Conspiracy theory forums transformed into intelligence analysis platforms. The Zornak had approached Earth expecting a standard planetary subjugation. Instead, they found themselves in a multi-dimensional chess game where the board kept changing, the rules were constantly rewritten, and their opponents seemed to be enjoying every moment of the chaos. We are dealing with a species that does not understand the concept of impossible, Vexnar muttered, watching another wave of drones get systematically dismantled by what could only be described as weaponized human creativity. As the first day of the invasion drew to a close, the Zornak Imperial Command received a transmission that would be discussed in their historical records for generations. It was not a declaration of war, nor a threat. It was a meme, with a cat wearing sunglasses. And somehow, impossibly, it was the most terrifying communication they had ever received. Dr. Aria Okonkwo's laboratory looked like a cross between a quantum physics research center and the most chaotic hackspace imaginable. Holographic displays danced with alien technological schematics, while half-eaten pizza boxes and energy drink cans testified to days of non-stop innovation. This, she muttered, tracing a complex quantum entanglement pattern, is going to rewrite everything we know about physics. The alien technology that had crash-landed during the initial encounters was proving to be more than just a scientific curiosity. It was a technological Rosetta Stone that was transforming human understanding of the universe at an exponential rate. Jack Chen leaned over a particularly intricate circuit board, his fingers moving with the precision of a surgeon and the creativity of an artist. We're not just reverse engineering, he explained to a team of bewildered government scientists. We're having a conversation with technology itself. The global scientific community had transformed overnight. Competitive research had given way to an unprecedented level of collaboration. Universities, tech companies, independent researchers, and even amateur scientists were now part of a massive, distributed research network that made the Manhattan Project look like a high school science fair. Captain Vexnar, monitoring from the increasingly compromised Zornak vessel, received another report that made his species equivalent of a stomach churn. "Sir," Sub-Captain Kretax reported, "the humans are advancing technological capabilities at a rate that defies our most aggressive predictive models. They are not just learning, they are reimagining." What the Zornak didn't understand was that humans viewed technology not as a fixed set of capabilities, but as a living, breathing ecosystem of potential. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A group of open-source hardware enthusiasts in a Discord server discovered that the alien communication arrays could be modified to create a quantum computing network that made current supercomputers look like abacuses. Within days, they had created a distributed computing platform that spanned continents, powered by everything from university supercomputers to modified gaming consoles. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was coordinating the global research effort, her team a bizarre mixture of theoretical physicists, network engineers, material scientists, and what could only be described as professional problem solvers. "We're not just copying their technology," she explained during a global briefing. "We're creating something entirely new." The first true breakthrough came when a team of researchers discovered how to manipulate the alien technology's quantum communication protocols. What the Zornak had developed as a closed, hierarchical communication system, humans transformed into an open, adaptive network that could reconfigure itself in real time. A retired NASA engineer working with a group of high school students in rural Nebraska found a way to modify the alien propulsion systems. Their breakthrough would make current rocket technology look like steam engines. The implications were staggering. Interstellar travel was no longer a distant dream, but an imminent possibility. The truly terrifying part for the Zornak was how quickly humans were not just understanding, but improving upon their technology. Each piece of alien tech became a puzzle, and humanity was a species of puzzle masters. Gaming communities developed neural network interfaces that could process alien technological data faster than any traditional research method. Crowdfunding platforms raised millions to support independent research. Every corner of human society was now a research and development lab. "We are witnessing the technological equivalent of a Cambrian explosion," Dr. Okonkwo told her team, her eyes reflecting the complex holographic displays. "Except this time, we're the ones doing the evolving." The Zornak Imperial Command received another transmission that defied all their understanding. It wasn't a weapon schematic or a diplomatic message. It was a GitHub repository, open source, fully documented, with improvements to their most advanced technological systems. And attached was a simple note: "Thought you might find this interesting. Humanity." Captain Vexnar realized, with a growing sense of existential dread, that they had done more than just encounter a new species. They had awakened something far more dangerous, a species that didn't just adapt to technology, it transformed it. The Zornak diplomatic vessel approached what they believed would be a standard communication protocol, carrying what they considered their most adaptable negotiation team. What they didn't realize was that humanity had been preparing for this moment in the most uniquely human way possible. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in a nondescript conference room, surrounded by a team that defied every conventional understanding of diplomatic representation. There was Jack Chen, the cybersecurity expert, Aria Okonkwo, the quantum physicist, and inexplicably, a professional internet troll named Marcus who had been vetted by multiple intelligence agencies for his unprecedented ability to navigate complex communication landscapes. "Remember," Elena whispered to the team, "we're not just negotiating. We're teaching them how to communicate." The Zornak negotiation team, led by senior diplomatic coordinator Zrelnax, had spent centuries perfecting their approach to first contact. They had protocols for every conceivable scenario. Every civilization they had encountered followed predictable patterns of fear, submission, or resistance. Humanity was about to shatter every single one of those assumptions. The initial communication began traditionally enough. The Zornak representatives presented their standard diplomatic encryption, expecting a formal response. Instead, they received something entirely unexpected. A meme. Then a Wikipedia article. Then a live stream of a cat playing piano. Then a complex mathematical proof. Then a recipe for chocolate chip cookies. Marcus, grinning like a child who had just discovered the ultimate pranking technique, explained his approach. We're showing them that communication isn't linear. It's a web. A living, breathing, constantly shifting system of meaning. Zrelnax's biocomputational translation matrix began to experience what could only be described as an existential breakdown. The human communication was simultaneously literal and metaphorical, serious and absurd, deeply structured, and completely chaotic. Jack Chen had prepared something special. Using the quantum communication interfaces they had developed, he created a communication protocol that was itself a form of meta-commentary. Each transmission contained multiple layers of meaning, scientific data, cultural reference, emotional subtext, and pure abstract art. We're not just talking, Jack explained to the bewildered diplomatic team. We're creating a dialogue that requires active imagination to understand. The Zornak had encountered resistance before. They had met civilizations that fought back with weapons, with strategic thinking, with diplomatic maneuvering. But they had never met a species that fought back with creativity itself. Area Okonkwo presented a series of quantum entanglement communications that were simultaneously a scientific paper, a philosophical treatise, and an avant-garde poetry collection. The Zornak translation systems began to emit what could only be described as a digital whimper. We're demonstrating, Area said with a perfectly straight face, that understanding is not about translation. It's about transformation. The diplomatic team's secret weapon was humanity's most powerful attribute, the ability to find humor in the most serious of situations. Every time the Zornak attempted to establish a formal communication protocol, the humans would respond with something that was simultaneously a serious response and a complete subversion of diplomatic norms. A technical explanation of quantum communication would be delivered alongside a video of a dramatic chipmunk. A complex geopolitical analysis would be interspersed with dad jokes. Scientific data would be presented in the style of a rap battle. Zrelnax's final report to the Zornak Imperial Command was a masterpiece of diplomatic confusion. The humans are not negotiating. They are performing an elaborate, species-wide improvisation. Their communication is a form of art, warfare, science, and comedy simultaneously. We are not dealing with a civilization. We are dealing with a living, breathing, impossible system of infinite complexity. The truly terrifying part. The humans were enjoying every moment of it. As the transmission ended, Marcus looked at the team and winked. Wait until they see what we do next. Humanity had turned First Contact into the most elaborate, nonsensical, brilliant performance in the history of interstellar communication. And they were just getting started. The moment of transformation came not with a bang, but with a series of events so improbable that they would be studied by galactic historians for centuries. Captain Vexnar watched in growing horror as the carefully constructed Zornak Imperial strategy unraveled. What had begun as a routine planetary assessment had become an existential crisis for an entire civilization. The first true indication of humanity's galactic potential came during what the Zornak had intended to be a demonstration of overwhelming technological superiority. They had gathered a flotilla of their most advanced warships, a force that had subjugated hundreds of civilizations across the galaxy. Dr. Area Okonkwo's team had other plans. Using the quantum communication interfaces they had developed, they didn't just intercept the alien fleet's communications. They rewrote them. Each ship's navigation system, each weapon targeting matrix, each defensive protocol was subtly transformed. The Zornak weren't just being defeated, they were being systematically reimagined. Jack Chen, coordinating from a global distributed command center that looked more like a massive alien party than a military installation, grinned. "We're not hacking their systems," he explained to a group of bewildered military officials. "We're teaching them a new way of existing." The global response was quintessentially human. Every sector of human society had become part of the resistance. Universities were now research and development labs. Gaming communities provided distributed computing power. Social media platforms became intelligence-gathering networks. Even art communities were developing communication strategies that defied traditional understanding. A group of performance artists in Tokyo created an immersive experience that simultaneously served as a complex mathematical proof and a critique of interstellar colonialism. A blockchain development team in Sao Paulo designed a communication protocol that was itself a form of passive-aggressive diplomatic negotiation. The Zornak had never encountered a species that could turn existential threat into a collaborative art project. Sub-Captain Kretax's report to Imperial Command became increasingly desperate. "The humans are not just resisting," he noted. "They are fundamentally altering the nature of conflict itself. They are treating our invasion as a design challenge." What truly terrified the Zornak was how quickly humans were transforming their technology. Alien communication arrays were being repurposed into distributed computing networks. Weapon systems were being converted into medical research platforms. Navigation technologies were being adapted for climate change mitigation. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a global conference, representing humanity in a way no traditional diplomat ever could. "We're not interested in conquest," she explained, her presentation simultaneously a scientific treatise, a philosophical argument, and a work of performance art. "We're interested in collaboration." The turning point came during what the Zornak had planned as their final, overwhelming assault. Instead of resistance, they found something entirely unexpected. An invitation. Humanity didn't just want to survive. They wanted to understand. They wanted to collaborate. They were offering the Zornak something far more valuable than any planetary resource, a fundamental reimagining of what interstellar civilization could be. The global response was coordinated through channels that defied traditional military or diplomatic understanding. Open-source platforms, crowd-funded research initiatives, collaborative art projects, quantum communication networks that transformed every interaction into a multi-layer dialogue. Captain Vexnar received the final transmission that would forever change Zornak understanding of the universe. It wasn't a declaration of victory. It wasn't a threat. It was an open-source GitHub repository containing a complete reimagining of their most advanced technological systems. And a simple note: "Thought you might find this interesting. Let's talk." Humanity. The Zornak Imperial Command would later describe this moment as the most terrifying, beautiful, and impossible first contact in the history of their civilization. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had transformed the very concept of survival. And they were just getting started. The first truly collaborative meeting between humans and Zornak wasn't held in a sterile diplomatic chamber or on a massive starship. It happened in a converted warehouse in Mumbai, decorated with an impossible mixture of scientific equipment, art installations, and what could only be described as the world's most complex coffee bar. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood beside Zrelnax, the senior Zornak diplomatic coordinator, watching as representatives from every corner of human society mingled with the alien delegation. A quantum physicist discussed computational theory with a Zornak technologist. A street artist was creating a mural that was simultaneously a mathematical proof and a cultural exchange. A group of high school students were teaching Zornak junior officers the intricacies of internet meme culture. "We're not just sharing knowledge," Elena explained, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of scientific excitement and pure human creativity. "We're creating a new way of understanding." Jack Chen had been instrumental in designing the communication protocols. What had begun as a defensive mechanism had transformed into something far more profound. A translation system that was part language, part art, part collaborative problem-solving platform. The Zornak were beginning to understand that humanity was not a civilization to be conquered. They were a living, breathing, constantly evolving system of infinite potential. Sub-Captain Kretax, who had once viewed humans as a potential threat, now found himself working on a joint research project with a team of researchers that included a retired mathematics professor, 2 graduate students, and a professional video game designer. Your approach to problem solving, Kretax noted to the team, is simultaneously the most chaotic and the most brilliant system I have ever encountered. The reconciliation wasn't just technological or diplomatic. It was deeply cultural. Humanity introduced the Zornak to concepts they had never considered: collaborative creativity, the value of seemingly random interaction, the power of collective imagination. Art became a primary mode of communication. A group of performance artists developed a new form of interspecies dialogue that was part dance, part mathematical theorem, part emotional expression. Zornak representatives found themselves learning improvisational theater as a means of understanding human communication. Area Okonkwo's quantum research team had developed communication interfaces that went beyond traditional language. They were creating methods of interaction that integrated emotional, mathematical, and artistic expression into a single, fluid medium of exchange. The most surprising development came from unexpected sources. A group of high school students in Lagos developed a collaborative platform that became a model for interspecies communication. Online gaming communities created simulation environments that allowed Zornak and humans to explore each other's cultural contexts. "We're not just sharing information," one of the student developers explained. "We're creating shared experiences." The Zornak were learning that humanity's greatest strength was not its technology, not its resilience, but its ability to transform every interaction into an opportunity for mutual growth. Cultural exchange programs emerged that defied traditional diplomatic approaches. Zornak artists learned human music. Human philosophers studied Zornak computational theology. Children from both species began developing joint educational platforms that challenged everything both civilizations understood about learning. Captain Vexnar, once the commander of an invasion fleet, now found himself leading a joint research initiative exploring the potential of collaborative exploration. The very ship that had once been meant to subjugate humanity was now a symbol of mutual discovery. The most profound moment came during a seemingly simple interaction. A group of Zornak children were learning about human culture through an immersive simulation. When asked what they found most interesting about humans, their response was unexpected. "They make everything a story," one of the young Zornak said. "Even math is a story. Even conflict is a story. They don't just live. They narrate." It wasn't a conquest. It wasn't a defeat. It was a transformation. Humanity had not just survived an attempted invasion. They had reimagined the very concept of interstellar civilization. And they were just getting started. 50 years after first contact, the galaxy looked nothing like anyone had expected. The celestial collaboration hub orbited the midpoint between Earth and the Zornak homeworld, a massive living structure that was part research facility, part cultural exchange center, part ongoing experiment in interspecies existence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, now in her 70s, watched the holographic displays with the same spark of curiosity that had defined her entire career. "We didn't just change how civilizations interact," she told a group of young researchers from a dozen different species. "We rewrote the entire concept of what civilization means." Humanity had become something entirely unexpected. Not a conquering species, not a defensive civilization, but a bridge, a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could be. The technologies developed during those first chaotic years of contact had transformed every aspect of galactic existence. Quantum communication systems that originated from human internet memes now form the backbone of interstellar information exchange. Adaptive learning platforms developed by high school students had become the standard educational model for emerging civilizations. Jack Chen, now leading the Galactic Collaborative Research Initiative, was reviewing a project that perfectly encapsulated their approach. A team composed of humans, Zornak, and 3 other species was working on a problem that would have been unimaginable 50 years ago, creating communication systems for potentially sentient ocean currents on a newly discovered planet. It's not about finding answers, Jack would often say. It's about making the question more interesting. Area Okonkwo's quantum research had evolved into something that blurred the lines between science, art, and philosophy. The communication interfaces they had developed allowed for exchanges that went beyond language, capturing emotional complexity, mathematical precision, and creative potential in ways no one had previously imagined. The most profound changes were cultural. The concept of conflict had been fundamentally transformed. Species that once would have gone to war now saw challenges as collaborative design problems. Diplomatic negotiations were more likely to involve improvisational theater, mathematical modeling, and collective creativity than traditional political maneuvering. A new generation had emerged, born into a galaxy where diversity was not just accepted, but celebrated as the primary source of innovation. Children learned multiple languages, multiple modes of thinking, multiple ways of perceiving reality. The Zornak, once a species focused on conquest, had become the galaxy's most passionate explorers of collaborative potential. Their former military leaders now led research initiatives exploring the boundaries of collective intelligence. Captain Vexnar's grandchildren were part of a mixed-species research team exploring the edges of known space, their ship a living testament to the power of mutual understanding. The vessel was as much an art installation as it was a scientific platform. Each system, a collaborative design that reflected multiple cultural perspectives. During a commemorative event marking the 50-year anniversary of First Contact, representatives from hundreds of species gathered. The ceremony was nothing like traditional diplomatic gatherings. It was part scientific conference, part art festival, part collective meditation. A young human Zornak hybrid took the stage, delivering a presentation that was simultaneously a mathematical proof, a musical performance, and a philosophical treatise. The audience, composed of beings from across the galaxy, listened with a combination of scientific rigor and creative appreciation. "We are not defined by our origins," the speaker explained, "but by our capacity to reimagine what's possible." The true victory was not in defeating the Zornak invasion. It was in transforming the very concept of invasion. Humanity had not conquered. They had collaborated. They had not defended. They had redesigned. Sub-Captain Kretax, now a senior advisor in Galactic collaborative research, reflected on their first encounter. "We thought we were meeting a species," he often said. "We discovered an entire approach to existence." As the holographic displays of the Celestial Collaboration Hub shifted, showing ongoing research projects, cultural exchanges, and collaborative explorations, one thing became clear. The story was still being written, and humanity's greatest strength remained its infinite capacity for reimagination. They had not just survived. They had transformed the very concept of survival.